Republicans, they had how much time to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
We're talking 15 years now.
Yep.
They had to come up with a better alternative plan, a plan that is actually simple to understand, that you could explain to the American voter, that all Republicans agree on, and yet they still have nothing. And then they wonder why they lose.
So I guess we're now in a record-breaking shutdown, Mark, and you're delighted about it because you're big on the fiscal responsibility of the United States government, as I think Nicholas is, and as I am. But the Trump administration came out today and said they're going to cut the deficit by $600 billion this year alone. Is that even possible?
Crickets, you're asking me? I don't know. The number sounds kind of high. Maybe the shutdown will help them. I like the idea of the shutdown as a hammer to get actual legislative action. And they're just voting the same crap over and over again and running and hiding. So I don't really know. They're going to get punished over the shutdown, I think, increasingly. But so far, Trump's kind of skated. He's at -8 net approval yesterday, which is the lowest of his term, but it's not that bad. I don't think people really care that much about the government being shut down. It's more what are you guys going to do about it? And right now, nobody wants to do anything. And the Democrats had it as a backdrop for an election that they just did really well at. And so right now what's happening is Trump's getting frustrated at his own party and yelling at them to use the nuclear option, which I don't even think they can do. It just looks like garbage. When what we thought we were going to get going into this was Russ Vought, chopping off whole portions of the federal government, which would have been great for everybody. The Zoomers really would have loved that. I haven't heard about that guy for a month now, so I really don't know what their plan is, but it's not good.
Nick, the Democrats today voting for the 14th time to not reopen the government. They're saying next week, if the government's not reopened, that they're going to have to start shutting down some airspaces across America. Tonight, we saw tragically a UPS plane go down in Kentucky. We're praying for those folks, the 3 people who deceased, 11 more injured. This is going to start hitting the lives of everyday Americans. I get on a plane now, and I'm terrified as it is to get on a plane out of Newark, New Jersey, with the issues that we have there. But you've got that. You've got President Trump defying the court order, saying SNAP beneficiaries are not going to get their payments until the government reopens. I mean, who is on the winning side of this issue?
It's so hard to tell. The first 3 weeks of a shutdown, nobody feels it, nobody cares, and I think even if the government reopens tomorrow, nobody's going into the polling booths next year based on the shutdown of this year, right? It will be quickly forgotten once it's over. But the longer it goes on, well, now the more pain it causes. And when you start to inconvenience Americans, Americans get mad. And I don't know who the American people are going to blame with this. It seems like Republicans historically usually get the blame for government shutdowns. At the same time, I do think that given the fact that they've had these clean resolutions, the clean CRs going forward, and Democrats keep rejecting them, and you have a Democrat like John Fetterman coming out saying that Democrats should get on board with the clean CRs, that's always what was passed, that was always what was agreed upon, it does make Democrats look bad. There's speculation that maybe Democrats will now be willing to reopen the government because they did win the election. So now they want to show that they can govern. At the same time, some say that maybe they look at the election victory as a reward for keeping the shutdown going, right? The far left at a base came out in droves, and if we reopen the government, then we're going to face backlash from the far left. It's really hard to say how long it's going to last, but it can't last that much longer because it will decimate the economy. I mean, listen, I am someone that believes you could cut 20% from every single government agency and government program, and nobody will feel a thing.
Sure.
At the same time, though, when you immediately take 1.6 trillion, because that's our national deficit each year, when we're taking 1.6 trillion out of the economy immediately, that does cause a shock to the economy as well. And when we examine it, our budget's a friggin' disaster. And this is part of the problem. It goes back to the Republicans and the failure of their leadership. When was the last time we actually followed normal budget procedure in the United States, where we introduced 12 individual budget bills, fund to each agency, each of the departments, and passed it the right way? We don't. And what's happened throughout this time is more and more discretionary spending has been given to these federal agencies and departments. And these agencies and departments can spend the discretionary funds any which way they see fit, as long as they can justify it to Congress. It's a complete disaster, and we have to get it under control. What happens if we don't reopen the government? I don't know. This is now the longest shutdown. If we have to close down airspace, I mean, think about the amount, forget people being transported from one place to another and tourism and how that takes a hit. Think of how many goods are shipped through the air each and every day and how that could grind production to a halt, how that could lead to supply chain continuity issues. And it could be wreak havoc on a Trump economy. And the one thing we all know about Trump, he does not want to have a bad economy.
Yeah.
He will be very upset with a bad economy. So I think that something's going to get done.
Mark, Nick just brought up an interesting point, and he said with the Democrats winning tonight, was this really a Democrat win? You went from Democrat to Democrat. No Republican was ever favored to win any of these seats to begin with. Was this actually a Democrat win?
Well, I don't know. I'm looking at where New Jersey's going to play out, and it looks like the Democrats might like overperform any of the polling, really. And that would be a Democrat win, like a Democrat overperformance of the polling.
Okay.
And even if it isn't, they're still going to paint it as a Democrat win. Look, Trump's in office and everybody's voting from Democrats. But, you know, just thinking about this shutdown, the just absolute retardation in which the Republicans have backed themselves into a corner. So they can't end the shutdown without giving in to Democrats, essentially, is what it comes down to. And the only path that they have out is to either like bully the Democrats into submission, and they're not doing that. They literally are, there's nothing that they are leveraging over the Democrats, or to use the nuclear option, which they can't do because they don't have enough votes. That's why Trump's screaming at them. So even though they're in charge of Congress and the Senate, and everybody knows they're governing, nobody gives a crap about the filibuster rules, and they look like complete losers. They're going to have to cave to the Democrats, and they're gaining no political capital by keeping the government shut down. The whole point was to use it to gain political capital. Well, what are
Well,
they
let's
gaining?
be honest. Most Americans have no idea how the Senate actually works. When Democrats are out there and they're saying, well, Republicans are in the majority in the Senate, they can reopen the government when they want. They don't, Republicans just sit there and they think Americans know about the filibuster and cloture votes. And no, the American people don't know. The American people see that when you're in the majority, there's high expectations. It's why Mitch McConnell, when he became the majority leader, said, I'd rather be the minority leader because nobody has any expectations of you doing anything when you're in the minority.
Yeah, that's the problem with most of these politicians.
This whole Republican Party summarized in one sentence.
Yeah. The interesting thing we're starting to see now is a little bit of turning inside the Republican Party. We've seen it from Tom Massey from the beginning. We've seen it now from Rand Paul. There's an interesting one we saw today, and I want to get your guys' reaction on a roll of video for you guys. Marjorie Taylor Greene, who apparently is very upset that President Trump snubbed her for the Senate seat in Georgia, knowing that she can't win based on the background, based on who she is. But she was on The View today, and she was actually going after MAGA influencers.
I think there's a lot of paid social media influencers. And I found it very interesting that they were the MAGA accounts, but they're all paid, and they all attacked me when I announced I was coming to join you ladies on The View. And I think that's very weak and pathetic. But when I talk about weak Republican men, I'm pretty much talking oftentimes about the leadership in the House and the Senate, and they're not getting our agenda done.
Good old Marjorie Taylor import every single illegal immigrant to come work at my construction Green, turning on MAGA?
Who needs Democrats when you got Republicans? I mean, seriously, when we look at it, I mean, look at what she's someone that's advocating. You got to give in to the ACA subsidies, and Republicans should have been explaining to the American people that, hey, Democrats gave you these subsidies. So when these subsidies expire, you're facing 4 years of rate increases, not just 1 year of rate increases, 4 years of rate increases that are built up. And the longer the subsidies take place, the longer the rate increases are hidden from you, the American public. So now you have all these people getting their health insurance bills like, oh my God, it's going up 30%. Well, yeah, that's like me not paying the increase on my car insurance for 4 years, and I get that bill finally. It's going to be a big increase over that period. And Republicans, they had how much time to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
We're talking 15 years now.
Yep.
They had to come up with a better alternative plan, a plan that is actually simple to understand, that you could explain to the American voter, that all Republicans agree on, and yet they still have nothing. And then they wonder why they lose. But you don't need a plan to lose when you got Marjorie Taylor Greene sitting there bashing you and bashing Republicans. I mean, she's ridiculous in herself.
She's actually one of Mark's favorite members of Congress. He told me off the record. I don't know what's gotten into her. I mean, she's on this new faction. Mark's there rolling his eyes.
John, what did she say that was wrong, though? Like, I agree with the whole construction aspect.
no,
I think her business should be rated.
Yeah.
But like, what did exactly on The View did she say wrong? Are we just upset that she was on The View? Because that
Well,
could
I think
be.
I think it's absolutely retarded, to use your favorite word, that she would.
I would go on The View and Republicans. Like, I would do that all day long.
Yeah, you or I would, but not this woman who's this devout MAGAite when they're out there every day calling Donald Trump Hitler. I mean, really? To me, it seems like more of a personal issue.
Well, Republicans are idiotic for complaining that she's going on The View. I mean, if someone's invited, go on The View, but actually challenge the ladies on The View. Don't sit there.
She doesn't have the brain power to do that. No, to me, it's like her crying, like Massey crying and Rand Paul crying. No, well, Donald Trump doesn't want to support me for Georgia. Well, no, because we don't want to give away another election seat. We want to win these 2 Senate seats back in Georgia.
Yeah.
We don't want to have an instance like we had in Arizona, where Carrie Lake lost an election however many times and keep losing these elections. It boils down to Curtis Sliwa here in New York. How many more times are you going to run, Curtis, before you say, okay, enough's enough? Let's maybe try to get somebody who could win this seat, not run for the New York City matching funds where I'm getting 7-1 or 8-1, where, I can raise millions of dollars.
But Republicans didn't even put up a candidate against Sliwa.
Bingo.
No,
That's
because they're not going to waste their time. And I'm not arguing with you on the fact of it, but they're not going to sit there and waste their time on this guy who's, pretty much a shoo-in. And this boils back to what we were talking about earlier about there being accountability inside these local GOPs. Who's running the New York GOP? Who's running these local GOPs? Who's responsible for putting these candidates up?
Let me tell you another story, John. I polled on 3 states now privately for like Senate and governor races of MAGA candidates. And they're in like bluish states where it's like, if Trump really had a major preference cascade, then they could get over the finish line. But they're probably going to run in the general and lose by like 7 or 8 points. And the Trump endorsement would help them. And the polling all looks the same in these states. Like, people are super frustrated with traditional Republicans. Republican brand is like really trodden down. People want a MAGA Republican over a traditional Republican, but they're still going to lose. And what's the trend I've seen across all of these people? They don't know who to talk to. They can't get in at the RGA. Donald Trump's endorsement person doesn't want to talk to them because they're going to lose. The NRSC doesn't want to spend money on them because they're going to lose. And so what you have is all these blue states where what's going to happen is some basically establishment toadie's going to run and look like an absolute retard. Give the Republican Party a bad name, run on nothing, and look like a complete failure because the Republicans don't want to spend money. They don't want to actually plan. They don't want to look at, there's only 50 states.
They don't want to do the hard work.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mark. Yeah. I agree with you 100%, especially when you look at the Democrats, when you've got Zohan Mamdani, a 33 or 34-year-old assemblyman or whatever, come here. He's now running the biggest city in America. I mean, absolutely.
But here's a key difference between Democrats and Republicans. So I live on Long Island, which my area is a red area, thankfully. But what Democrats will do is they will bus their people in from New York City to Suffolk County to go and campaign for Democrats here. They'll bus them in to help protest here, to make the protest bigger. You never hear of Republicans organizing in Suffolk County and sending Republicans into the city to help Republican candidates win city council seats, win the mayor's race. And that's the difference between Democrats and Republicans. Democrats are highly organized. They're activists. They're trained. They're engaged. Where Republicans take a much more hands-off approach, just like they did with the education system. And now the education system has been hijacked by all leftists, just like they did within the federal bureaucracy. And the bureaucracy has been hijacked by all leftists. If you would have asked anyone 15 years ago, A member of the FBI, are they a Democrat or Republican? Most of them would have said Republicans. They didn't realize that Democrats were building the intel component out and they were hiring right off the college campuses. Republicans tend to ignore what's right in front of their faces. But then they act all surprised, like, oh, we had no idea. We had no idea. It was like you hear all the Republicans with Operation Arctic Frost. They were being spied on, and they're sitting there saying, this is shocking. This is outrageous. No, we've been warning you about this for years. And so you shouldn't be surprised. And yet you still haven't introduced a bill to curb their power, despite them spying on you, and you're the one with the power of oversight.
Or arrested anybody.
A lot of frustrated people out there.
Or how about arresting somebody? I mean, they've got James Comey on lying to Congress when the man's clearly guilty of treason. You've got Letitia James with her political persecution of President Trump, who's going down for mortgage fraud.
But you could arrest as many people as you want. The reality is you're not fixing this problem until Congress exercises their power of oversight and introduces legislation to take away their statutory authority. If you want to arrest a couple people, that's great. There should be accountability and they should go to prison. I have no problem with that. But it's not going to stop the bureaucracy from doing it again. The bureaucracy has become an animal unto itself. It's the fourth branch of government that has no respect for the checks and balances and separation of powers. And so Republicans, they all knew that FISA was being abused. Congressman Devin Nunes revealed everything. And then a vote came up to reauthorize FISA. And what did every Republican do in lockstep? Well, we'll vote to reauthorize it. That's the idiocy.
Burn it down politics. That's where we're at.